Hello, good morning. I'm Kyoka, the Awkward Black Nomad. I'm a writer, I'm a dog mom, and I travel solo. On my channel, I talk about my experiences bopping around with my two dogs, and I also invite other black travelers to come onto the channel and talk about their experiences traveling around the world and living abroad. If that sounds like something you're interested in, subscribe to the channel. Okay. Like this video, share with somebody who could find some use for it, and drop down in the comment section. If you have any questions during the live, please put a Q in front of your question so I can get to it. We have a special guest. I'm going to bring her up if I could figure out how to do that. Yes. Hi.
Hello,
How are you?
I'm doing well.
Could you introduce yourself for the people?
Okay, so I am Charisma Cares. Let's see, I have been a nomad for about 4 to 5 years now. I travel abroad initially with my two kids. Now I travel with one is in college, and I travel with my son who has special needs and a disability. We currently live in Kenya. Let's see. A few things that I do. I provide coaching and mentorship for typically women that want to invest in real estate or want to travel abroad, maybe single moms or have kids with special needs. And then I invest in multiple places, the US, Rwanda, and soon to be here in Kenya. And then I'm also a nurse practitioner of 20 years. So I specialize in holistic and functional medicine in the mental and emotional health realm.
Okay. Hi, everybody. As you filter in the room, Black folk, we speak when we come into the room. I know it's early, but tell us good morning, say hi. If you have any questions, ask Charisma. I hear that there is an echo. Let me know if there's still an echo. I can try to put some headphones on. So drop down in the comment section. Let me know. Hi, Ty. Hi,
Hey
located
there.
Yolanda. Hi, Black Yaya. What's up? Let me know if there's still an echo, guys. Okay, so Charisma, you mentioned that you have a holistic wellness practice. So great. So now I know how to fix that when it happens next time. So you mentioned that you have a holistic wellness practice. So what did you get in? How did you get into that industry? How did you get into that field?
So actually, about 2 or 3 years ago, once I started traveling around, I stopped working. I had just decided I didn't want to work in the medical field, and I was just a little tired of it. But what I prior to that, I was working in psychiatry. But what I kept finding were a lot of Black women posting how they were experiencing anxiety, imposter syndrome, depression, just those feelings of being down and doubt, and how they couldn't find any Black providers. So it just came on my heart, and I was like, maybe I'll go back into this. But I didn't want to go back into it the way I had before. I didn't want to be the person that you come to so I can prescribe you some Lexapro or some Prozac and tell you to go about your way. So I took some time to do some research, to find out a different way of treating people. And that led me down to the holistic route. Basically, I had been treating my son holistically for his disability, and he was making great strides with it. So I combined my medical knowledge along with holistic knowledge, along with functional medicine. So what I do now is I treat women, but I treat the whole body. So if you come to me for depression, we don't just focus on your depression. We focus on everything that goes into it. So we focus on your nutrition, your exercise, your spiritual meditation, things of that nature. We focus on breath work. We focus on your digestion. So basically, I create an individual plan for every woman that I see. I literally sit down with you for an hour and a half, and go over what are your concerns, what are your issues, and pinpoint where we can actually fix some things and get you to the point that you're not just popping another pill, get you to a point where you're actually healing those different areas.
Yes,
So,
I love that you said all of that. So I'm a overshare a little bit. So I have depression and anxiety. I am not someone who takes medication for it, and I've talked about this on the channel before. So I started meditating, doing yoga when I was in high school to kind of self-manage my depression. I think it is so important that we find holistic solutions to our mental disorders and not, like you said, just pop pills. Now,
right.
mind you, sometimes popping a pill is easier, but it's only putting a band-aid on a deep wound. How do you feel how do you find that, like, being in Kenya? So I'm thinking of so many things. I, over the weekend, attended the Africa Investors Summit. And there was a speaker on there who talked about like holistic treatments and how supplements that are capsulated are more popular with like a Western audience, but for an African audience, they're not likely to pop a pill, so it's easier to sell things like powders or topical creams or things that you can mix in with the whole foods and natural ingredients. Do you feel like that has impacted your practice? So being in the motherland, having a different demographic in Kenya, how you would treat people?
So my demographic is worldwide. So I'm not limited to Kenya. I have clients in the US, I have clients in Thailand, I have clients in Kenya. So what I do it virtually. So I treat people no matter where they are. And based off of where you are, we do the research. I do some research, you do some research, and we find out about the health food stores, the natural stores in your area. So I have come to notice that abroad, not just Africa, but just anywhere outside of the US, you normally have your supplements that are loose. And then inside the US, you have your supplements in capsule forms. You have to be very careful because supplements do have side effects, and a lot of people don't realize that. You know, they read it online and they take it, but there's some that are blood thinners. There's some that can actually induce abortions. There's so many different supplements out here. You have to be careful and you have to know how much to take, especially when those supplements are loose. They come in a bag and you need to measure them. So you need to know because you can very quickly overdose on them. Um, Going back to the pills, if a client, so basically, if you have um, if there's something different with your brain, you may actually need a pill. So I'm not knocking those that do. If you do need that, we can talk about that. I can prescribe that for you. It's so much easier if you live over abroad. Abroad, I basically look at your country. I look at the medication equivalent. I do I go in and I do the calculations and we can use that medication. Sometimes you may just need the medication to get you over a hump. We wean it off. Sometimes you may, if you have something going on in your brain and there's actually an imbalance, we may need to stay on that. But the goal for most of my patients is ultimately not to be on medication. So that's why we treat it that way.
I love that. So what kind of services do you offer at your wellness clinic?
So basically, what I do, I'm not the practitioner that you come to and you're like, I want to visit here, visit there, visit there. You really have to be serious and committed to what we're doing because these are lifestyle changes that you're going to need to implement. So what I offer is I offer packages, typically 3 months or 6 month packages, and you work with me that entire time. I don't do these 10, 15 minute visits. Visits are normally 30 minutes to an hour. Your first visits or more. And then I also, even if someone isn't coming to me for mental health, if they're coming to me for physical health, they're all related. So I also have a mental health coach. She's PhD trained. There are holistic coaches and things of that nature, but in my clinic, I'm not knocking what they do, but in my clinic, there's years of experience that we're, we've been doing this for a very long time. So I do both. We work within that, but I also offer like free classes or challenges like once every other month or every other quarter, just to give back to help you help yourself in the meantime. If you need me, I'm here, but if you don't, I still want to give you something to work with.
And I have a link to Charisma's Holistic Breakthrough Wellness Clinic. I've put it in the chat and I'm also going to put it in the description of this video. You're actually offering a free breakthrough call. What can callers expect from that first conversation?
So on the free breakthrough call, we actually go over what your medical. I want to go over your medical and your mental and your physical. And basically on that call, I want to find out if there is something I can do to help you because I'm not in the business of just taking people as clients. Honestly, I don't, I do this about 2 days a week. And this is really because it's something close to me. I want to help 50 women by the end of the year. So, we do that appointment. We go over what your needs are. Some people need to do the program, but some people just need to do like some other type of coaching. Like I've had clients come to me, and what they really needed was more like business type, structuring. So we did a couple of sessions over the business stuff. And once they did that, they were like, okay, I think I'm good. There's some clients that's come to me, been to multiple doctors, nobody can help them. And as Black women, nobody's really listening to us. And, we go into the program and we work on what it is that you need to work on. But that call is I ask you questions, you ask me questions. Maybe we even need to do a second call if you still need clarification. And those calls are free. I don't charge for those.
Okay, perfect. So I know you mentioned that you have clients from all over the world, but you are based in Kenya. So like, do you find that there are any sort of cultural practices or community practices that have impacted the way that you treat people?
So, okay, let me first say this before I answer that. Next month, we do have a 5-day stress reset. That's free, so you can join that. I think I gave you the link for that. So if anyone, is that's the one people voted on. They voted on stress, so we're doing that. And the reason I wanted to say that first, because once I tell you about Kenya, we'll probably go into Kenya.
Well, wait,
So
hold on. So you said stress free. So in your experience, what are some of the common stressors for Black women in particular? And also, is your programs geared towards Black women or is it any person can join?
it's geared towards Black women because that's where my heart is. I feel like even when I was in practice, our Black women are misunderstood. They're not listened to. They're pushed over. I was working in psych, yet I was helping women get services in for their physical, for their lymphedema, for their high blood pressure.
Mm,
I was finding them orthopedists, and I was still doing all these things because apparently I was the only person that was listening to them. So, it's not to say I won't see other people, but primarily my target audience is Black women because somebody's got to focus on us.
yeah.
It might as well be us. So, and then what was your other question? I'm sorry.
Oh, but I was thinking about your point. I mean, that's so true. We have a distrust of people in the medical field for good reason. And so it's like when you do find someone, even if that isn't their specialty, if you find someone that you can trust, who you can talk to, yeah, I'm going to ask that person for recommendations or I'm going to ask them to connect me with another, physician that will be helpful to me because it's so hard to find good care. So yeah, definitely. But I asked you if Kenya was if cultural or community practices in Kenya were impacting the way your clinic.
So I have to say no. And it's very, very simple. And the
Fair.
reason I say no is because Kenya is very Nairobi. I live in Nairobi in the city. It's very metropolitan. Like I compare Nairobi to Atlanta in a sense. I'm from Atlanta.
Well,
Um,
what aspect of
so
Atlanta? That
I mean, like Metro Atlanta. I mean, because the thing is, I have not been to West Africa yet. I plan to go at the end of the year. However, when people go to West Africa, they tell you get this feeling of I'm home.
mm.
You have the music and the drums and people wearing their traditional garments. And they have, the head wraps and all of these things that's like, oh, welcome to Africa. When you come to Kenya, you get off the airplane and you just go along like you do anywhere else. Like there's no welcome to Africa. Like they're dressed just like you and me. They're dressed in
Oh.
regular American clothing. I don't know if Kenya has a traditional garment. If they do, I've never seen it.
Oh,
The Yes, the expats probably wear more traditional garments than Kenyans.
that makes,
So,
that makes sense.
at
I
least
could go
in
get
Nairobi.
that. That makes sense.
Yes. So, for that reason, I have not found any practices to pick up outside of the things that I already do, the supplements and things of that nature, the fact that they come loose instead of in pill form. But it's not. I don't know. I could be wrong. I know we have some people here that's in Africa. Maybe you all have seen something I haven't, but no. Mm-mm.
And perhaps you should like the video. So I see how many people are in the room and I see the like count. Okay. So like the video. If you have a question, ask Charisma a question. And good morning everybody in the US. Hi. Hi y'all. Okay. I mean, so have you seen any opportunities to collaborate with local businesses? Like in a holistic
Um,
sense, or I know you mentioned investing.
so I'm still looking for that. Kenya is a little different when it comes to doing business. It's very different what we're used to in the States. But
Wait, what do
it's
you
kind
mean
of
by
hard.
different? What do you mean?
Kenya works on a you pay me, I help you system. So that is everything. And when I say everything, that is everything. So it just depends on how much you're willing to pay to collaborate.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting. That's interesting.
They say, give me something small. That's what it is. Give me something small.
That sounds
That's
terrible.
how you know, right? That's how you know you about to come
Yeah.
out of some money.
Is it an American thing? Like, do you find that maybe other Kenyans are able to do business in a different way, and it's maybe because you're American that they're looking to get money first, or is that just how it is?
No, I thought that was the case initially, until I started talking to Kenyans and finding out that's the Kenyan way. For example, I went to a special needs school when I was looking at special needs schools, and they were telling me they were trying to get certain certifications. And to get the certifications, they were waiting years and years and years. And it wasn't until they met someone that worked higher up that they were actually able to get the certification, that it was actually pushed through. And
Mm.
even they had to give something small.
Wow. So you can't
Mhm.
get anything done if you don't have money to shell out.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Now, mind you, things are less expensive here. So it depends on how you view something small. You can view it as this is the full cost of this. This is still less expensive than it may be somewhere else. It's definitely less expensive than in the US. Or you view something small as, why y'all trying to rip me off? So it just depends on your mindset.
I mean, I'm always like, why y'all trying to rip me off? Look, give me your brother price. How much would your brother pay? Okay, give me that price. But do you,
Right.
so do you since you mentioned cost, let's talk about cost. How much would you say your monthly cost to live in Nairobi in the center, right? In the
Mhm.
city center, how much would that cost a month?
So I first have to say it depends on how you live. Like when we come here, and for people that's traveled abroad, once you leave the US, you have a certain level of American privilege. And something about Nairobi gives you that whole, as an American woman, especially a Black American woman, I don't want to say this wrong, but you're at a certain level. Like people kind of look at you a certain way, especially if you're one of the people that dressed up and you live in a nice area and all of these different things. So it kind of makes you feel like it was a Kenyan that told me that you may be middle to mid upper class in Atlanta or in the States, but here you're the elite. So you have to take that into consideration. So I say that to say you can live somewhere and have a two-bedroom for $600 to $800 a month. Or you can live somewhere and have a two-bedroom for like $1,000 a month. Where I live, well, I lived in a very expensive place initially, and the place was awful. So let me tell you, price does not gauge how good the place you live in. So you really have to look at it. And that place was around 14, 1500 a month. It was a place with
Well,
all the amenities.
well, let's conceptualize awful, right? Because I think sometimes as Americans they have an idea about the on the continent. So we're
Mhm.
talking about Nairobi as a modern city, a city that is already like urbanized and modernized, so you don't have to really worry about. Um, I'm only saying this because we had a conversation about Madagascar, and I had a lot of follow up questions. Okay, but when you say awful, what kind of things were happening?
So in Nairobi, there are a lot of high rise, like what we would consider condo buildings. And you have to be careful when you choose these condos because some of the ones that are newer may not have been built to the correct specs. So when I say awful, the building looked amazing. It had a pool, it had putt putt, it had a movie theater, it had a sauna, it had the heated pool, different things like that. It had a game room. However, in that building, the walls, water would be coming out of the walls. The ceilings are leaking. Yeah, like when I say awful, I mean structural damage, plumbing issues.
Wow.
So it wasn't just like, oh, I don't like this building. No, 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 no. It was, there's mold growing in here, so we have to leave. So you
And this
have
was
to be very
the 1500 a month.
correct.
Wow.
So, at this stage, I tell people do not get an apartment without talking to some expats. Yes, you talk to a realtor, but talk to some expats because we can tell you what's good, what's bad, what's this, what's that.
Mm.
And that was a three bedroom with a DSQ. So a DSQ is where your live-in help lives because I have a live-in nanny as well. So then I moved, and now my apartment is around 11, 1200. Three bedrooms, still has the DSQ for my live-in nanny, but the apartment is actually huge. I still have like a steam sauna room, pool, gym, things of that nature. So, that's, and it can go higher than that. So if you live by the embassy, a little bit out of the city, or you live in Westlands, it can definitely go higher. So there's some people that may be paying 2,000 a month
Mm,
in a two-bedroom, but it just depends. This is not. When people think of Nairobi, when people think of Africa, they think people walking around with these pitchforks and these outfits like Tarzan. That is not. That is not the case. So you have these high-end modern buildings, but you also have the low-end buildings as well. So if like some people and some people, or you do mid, maybe mid-range. Some people rather pay less. They don't need a pool and a gym and all of those things. They have their apartment. They like that. They're going to definitely be paying under 1,000 a month. They can go a little bit further out. Like I live right in the middle of everything. But if you go out 20 minutes, you can be paying 800, 800 for a three-bedroom.
mm,
So and that's why I say it's very similar to Atlanta. If you know Metro Atlanta, if you live in the heart of Atlanta, you're going to pay more than if you live in the outskirts, well, at least past Atlanta. All of Atlanta is expensive now, but you normally pay more in the city. So, but the good thing about Nairobi is the internet is stable, the electricity is pretty stable. You want to make sure you have electricity with a backup. So if it goes out, the generator pops back on, especially if you work online. Um, and then your bills are cheap. I pay probably like $14 a month in water. I pay, let's see, I pay more for my internet because I have a higher speed. So maybe like $30 for my internet. Um, the electricity is a token. So I may pay $30 a month for electricity. So otherwise, everything else is included in there.
when you say the electricity is a token, what do you mean?
So I learned this when I moved, started living overseas. There's like this little box. It looks like a phone. It's about the size of a phone, maybe a little bigger. And what you do is you input into your phone that you want to add money to it, and then it sounds so like Flintstones.
I'm trying not to wear so much of my reaction on my face.
So okay, let me start that over. You basically text the number and you pay money to this number. Say you want to put $10 on your account. And then they give you $10 worth of electricity. They give you a token number, like a 16-digit number. And then you take that number and you input it in the device that looks kind of like a phone.
Okay. Okay.
And that's how, so it's prepaid electricity instead of postpaid electricity.
Okay. So we are all electricians, basically.
No, no, no.
No?
You're just
I don't
putting
have to do
in a
anything?
code.
All right. And this is at like this would be in the building. So everybody would go to the same box to input a code, or is this like in your apartment there are different boxes?
It's in your apartment. So the box is for your apartment.
Okay. All right.
And so I experienced this in the DR as well. Now, you also have some apartments where you have to flip a switch to turn your hot water on. Mine's isn't like that, but a lot of apartments are like that. Water, you have actual water jugs that you have replaced, and you drink your water from there. You don't drink the water here.
Okay.
Um, you don't brush your teeth with the water here either because it can cause yellowing. A lot of people don't realize that. So let me throw that out there.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Oh,
So these are little trade offs that you have. when you live abroad. But I have to be honest, I learned this a few years ago because this is pretty typical in most countries outside of the US.
And to be fair, they add stuff into our water in the US. Like they add fluoride into our water.
Mhm.
So
Right.
Yvonne asked, do they deliver the water? Is it like a paid service or
Yeah, girl, I don't go do anything. So let's be clear. This is a Kenya is not necessarily the soft life place, but you can make it a soft life. So, I just send them a message, hey, I need some water. They bring the water, they take the old water jug, and it's done. That's just like if I need a massage, I'm probably going to get one because I started Pilates. I'm going to call my massage therapist. She'll be here tomorrow morning. If I need to get my hair and nails done, I can go get it done, or I can have someone come to the house to do it. So everything, and I mean everything, can be delivered. We still have Uber Eats. We have one called Glovo where, like, I don't necessarily go grocery shopping; those are delivered too. So all of that and it's much cheaper. It may cost me $1 to have
oh.
my stuff delivered.
Oh. Well, since we're talking about food, how much would you say you spend on groceries? Cuz you would be feeding two other people, right? Your son and the living nanny.
Yes.
So how much would you
So
say about a week or
let's see. So I'm gonna have to calculate this one. I've never actually calculated it. So I would say I spend a lot on groceries when I'm looking at it. I probably spend 150 every 2 weeks. But I do a lot. All of my fruits and vegetables come from the market, so that's the cheapest. So I probably spend about, let me see, for $16 to $20 in fruits and vegetables every week, because they're fresh. And then I spend the most on fish. Fish is expensive here. And then I still like my brands. So I still like my Heinz ketchup and things like that. So my bill is could be a bit more
they got
expensive.
Heinz ketchup out there? They got Heinz? You know,
Yeah, they have most of that stuff. Yeah, they got your hot sauce. They got it's That's why I'm saying, like, I lived in Rwanda before this, and it's like night and day.
oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Black Yaya says, I had my phone stolen when visiting. To file a police report, I had to buy the officer tea. $2 got me the report.
I told you, give me something small. That is what they always say. And I'm gonna be honest, y'all. I had my phone stolen the first time. It was my son's phone, and I was so mad. I was like, I absolutely hate this place. It was on Christmas Day at the mall. I was like, I had just decided I hated Kenya. I was never coming back. I was like, what kind of people steal? But apparently, that is the day that people steal. They go to the mall to steal. And if you're standing on the corner with your phone, you can have your phone stolen out your hand. However, I will say this is the same as when I lived in Medellin, Colombia.
Mm,
Like they said that too, you can have your phone stolen, and they were even more creative with it. But even when you're in the car here, and even when I was in Medellin, you keep the windows rolled up so nobody's hand can fit in to take your phone.
fair.
So your phone is the biggest commodity. And when I lived in Colombia, they said it's because it's easiest to sell and it makes the most money in the quickest sale. So hold
I
on.
had my phone stolen abroad. I was in London. I had my phone. I feel like that's like you're not a real traveler if you haven't had your phone stolen at least once. Okay. That's a rookie
I
mistake.
wish y'all would have
Everybody,
told me.
listen. Everybody gets the L, okay? It happens.
Wow, it does. It
It
happens.
happens. But so, other than your phone being stolen, have you ever felt unsafe in Kenya?
I don't feel unsafe. I don't really. The typical expat is not going into the areas that are unsafe. And the areas that we're in, Kilimani, Lavington, Killaleshwa, Westlands, the main cities, you're not really going to encounter much more than the phone being stolen. For example, I only take Uber and Bolt. I don't drive. It's about 2 to 3. If you spend more than $5, you paying a lot of money on an Uber and Bolt to get around. So you go to club at night. You come home. I was really scared the first time I came because everybody had told me how dangerous it was. I was scared to go places. I was scared to go out. The second time I came, because I was living in Rwanda, so the second time I came and visited, I came for 2 weeks, ended up staying 2 months and had a ball. I was out almost every night in these streets, going to clubs, going to bars,
Interesting.
just having a ball. And I was fine. You make sure because most of the places you live at have security. So
Mm.
they pick you up at your security, at your gate, and then they drop you off at the wherever you're going, and they have security too. So I mean, now if you trying to go into the local areas, and now I've known some people go into local areas, had their chains stolen, had their phone stolen, because they quick, like they gonna snatch and run. They've never really nothing major. Now, I know in one area, Riverside, they've had some recent things going on there, but it seemed like it lasted maybe a week or two because I haven't heard anything else. I run the social Black expats WhatsApp group here in Kenya, so I haven't heard them say anything else about that. So it sounds like it was a kind of one time thing.
Okay. Okay. I mean, well, you did mention that Black Americans might be the Black elite out there in the Nairobi streets. So, what does that mean? What kind of privileges will we get going over
Um, So I don't want to say just Black Americans are the elite. You're the elite along with the elite Kenyans because there's definitely some elite Kenyans. There's attorneys. There's doctors, nurse practitioners. Not well, they don't have nurse practitioners. Judges, things of that nature. So that's who you're kind of doing things with. For example, I go and I do golf lessons. We're out here doing Pilates. We're going to see the jockeys ride the horses. We're going to watch polo. Like we have become, now, I ain't never watched no polo in Atlanta. I've never been to a golf course in Atlanta. But over here in Nairobi, no ma'am, where are you going today, ma'am? I have golf lessons. Thank you. So
Do you like golf or is it like a social thing?
I actually discovered golf when I went to the coast of Kenya, went to Diani, and I stayed in one of the all inclusives, and it came with a free golf lesson. And I was like, okay, I'll go ahead and do it. Me and one other lady I met. And I actually really liked it. You have to relax your body
Mm.
in order to play golf. And anything that helps me relax, I'm like, maybe I should do this. So that's actually how I found out about it. And then I started taking lessons, and then I bought my own golf stuff. And,
Oh, you
you know,
serious?
yeah, I was like, whatever, might as well go ahead. So,
It's something
you
to do.
know, it will open the doors to meeting a certain standard of people, but it is something I like. I'm not really a person that will do something I don't like just to meet people. But it's actually something I found that I enjoy, and it's affordable here, whereas back in the States I'm like, ooh, who paying for that? But but
Listen,
out here
that's the
you
method.
can afford
You want to try something. If you live in the US and you're a woman and you want to try something, go on a date. Okay? Go on a
right,
date.
go
They
to
have
Top
to pay for it.
Golf.
Yeah, yeah, go to Top Golf. So they'll have to pay for it.
Yeah, I went on a date to Top Golf. Even that's $100 now. I'm like, "Ooh, child, y'all too expensive for me."
But that's why I asked, because I have gone on a date at Top Golf and I didn't like it. So I'm like, what are people doing for you spend a whole day out there? I'm like, what are they doing? I'm ready to go. I'm hungry. I want to snack. I just want to sit down. Like I'm not a sports girl because I get bored very easily. Like I don't care about winning. The points don't mean anything to me. So I'm ready to I want to eat and I want to drink and sit down.
So I'm actually not a sports girl either. That's what's so funny. But because I connected it, so I'm really big on my mental space. And, I've suffered with anxiety and depression, and having a son with a disability has brought on, can bring on some
Mhm.
different anxieties. We're in a great place now, but, some of those feelings still come up. So, what I enjoy about golf is, like I said, it forces you to relax. You cannot properly hit a ball unless you relax your body. So when you can do something that forces you to relax, it kind of it's like a whole endorphin thing and all of that. I would never think, like, my golf coach is like, "Oh, you can start watching golf." I was like, "Who? Not me. I'm not trying to watch those people." It's one thing for me to do it. I don't want to see them too. Now, mind you, I only do about an hour or so at this point. I don't know about this all day.
Well, I mean, I guess it's like you said, if you find something that you like and you see that it's meditative, then all right, maybe I need to take another look at golf. I don't know. All right.
Well, no. It's funny. I met a new friend here, and she was like, "Wait, Charisma, I didn't know you play golf. I play golf. Imagine two black women that play golf." It's like, really?
It's
You
cute.
just, you just never know. It
Cute.
is,
It's a
girl. I bought
vibe.
all kinds of clothes. I
Listen,
bought
I do
hats,
like the fit. I do like the fit, the golf fit.
yes. I bought it all. Yes, I'll be out there with my cute little hat, my little shirt.
A skirt. You put on a skirt.
I didn't do a skirt. I'm more of a leggings person. I'm like, yeah, I'm more of a. They said my Pilates coach was like, yeah, that African butt. No, I don't think we can do a skirt with. I'm like, we got the African butt. I was like,
Not the
okay, ma'am.
African butt. Was she
So,
African?
huh?
Was she African?
She was African. She was Kenyan. Yeah.
That's
She
funny.
was like, yep, you were blessed with one as well. So,
We love to see it. Yep.
yeah.
So, I mean, in your experiences, it sounds like you're having really good experiences with Kenyans. How is it being an expat, merging with the local community, or do you find that most of your community is other expats?
So I tell people, so it sounds good. Everything we're talking about sounds good. I tell people, Africa is not for the weak at heart. It is not. It is not. Let me just go ahead and pull the band-aid off real quick. Um, you have to have a desire to come to the motherland. The motherland will test your gangster every time.
Listen, no, but when I've had people like Jace and Dr. Linda from Tokende Travel on my channel who have said that you go to places like Nigeria or Cameroon, like that's really that's like Africa. Okay, places like South Africa are Africa light. Okay, meaning they've been like westernized, but there's just different levels to it. So where would you put on a on a scale to South Africa to Nigeria? Where would you put Kenya?
So Kenya is going to be closer to South Africa because it's more Africa-like. And I love South Africa, but South Africa will still test you. You can't go in South Africa acting all lackadaisical. You could get kidnapped, you could get robbed, you
Right,
anything can happen.
right.
But as long as make sure you're paying attention, then you'll be okay. Kenya is not so much of a you have to pay attention. You're not typically going to get robbed or kidnapped, well, unless your phone, but kidnapped and, all of those different things. Those aren't really what you have to worry about in Kenya. You will be hustled though. Like a Kenyan told me that Kenya is only second to Nigeria. Kenya has the second, they're the largest in scams. Like this is the only place I'm used to. I'm American. I'm used to people trying to overcharge me, right? This is the only place that I know they will rip you off for $1 and risk losing $200. Like they will overcharge you, and they don't overcharge you like a little, like double. They will overcharge you three, four times the price. So whatever the price is, I just tell them half. So if they're like it's 5,000 Kenyan shillings, I'll give you 25. I'll give you 2,000.
Okay.
Like because that's how much they will rip you off. So that is the hard part because it could be your Uber driver. Your Uber driver will try to rip you off.
You paid
They
for the app.
it doesn't matter. They'll be like, "Oh, this price is too low. This isn't what we actually charge. You'll need to give us another 100 shillings on top of this."
Oh wow.
And you
Okay.
like, what? Now, mind you, 100 shillings is change, but an Uber typically will cost about 300 shillings. So they want to charge you an extra 100 shillings, and you like, what is going on here? So if you don't know any better, you'll pay it. Like another example, I was getting curtains. You have to buy curtains and have them made here. Everything has to be made, which is very different. Can be good and bad. The curtains cost, let's say it costs $300. So they come, they measure, and you pay for them to go back and, to come to the house and go back. So that may be about $4. Well, he says to me, well, it's going to be $20 for me going back and forth. I'm like, what do you mean $20? Like I said, it costs less than that for me to take a car. He's on a bike. He says, yeah, it's going to be $20. Okay. Well, I know that it costs $5. I was going to give you $8, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you these $20, but I'm not buying any curtains from you. So for these $20, you have now lost $300
Oh wow.
because you wanted to rip me off and get $20 instead of it's $5. So if you had charged me $7 or $8, okay, whatever. But because you want to charge me so much, you want to charge me four times, then take the $20. But the $300, you're not getting that. You
Mm.
know, that has been the biggest sore spot for me in Kenya. And then you have to get your furniture made. You have to make sure they're not ripping you off with your furniture. You have to when you move into an apartment, you have to buy your refrigerator and your stove. There's a lot of different things. Those you typically get at a store that's kind of like Walmart. But your furniture, you're getting that made because if you go to a furniture store, the prices are astronomical at the furniture store. It's cheaper to have your furniture made, probably a quarter of what it costs to buy it at the store.
Really? Oh
Yes.
wow.
So everything, your beds, my office furniture, my living room set, your TV stand, your table, your kitchen table, your nightstands, everything is made.
And how long does that take? That sounds like that takes a long time.
Typically, most of it, they can have about the end of the week for most things.
What?
Hmm. Oh, now, one thing I will say, they'll work. They may rip you off, but they don't work. You need to make sure you don't pay them before and then they run away with your money. I think I'm up to about being ripped off, maybe about where I didn't actually receive the product I paid for. I'm probably somewhere between 70 and $100. Mhm.
Okay, it's not terrible, but to have a running tab of Money that
It
I
makes
might
me
be ripped
mad.
off. Right.
It makes me so like I'll be over here cursing people out in this house. Like, luckily, my nanny is a sweetheart. She's more than a nanny. She is basically my house manager because the way I be going off and I'm like, I'm getting on a plane and I'm leaving and I don't want to be here. Yeah. And she'll call them and but honey, and I mean, no need to go into the police. You still gonna have to pay the officer a little something. Give me a little something. So
But are they
it's
scary? Are they scary the way they are in the US?
no, ma'am. I've never been to a country where the police are scary, like in the US.
Same.
I mean, one of those officers that I reported to, he was a nice looking officer. I don't know.
Well,
I could
speaking of nice looking, Charisma, you mentioned being out in the streets. These are your words. So while you were out in the streets, what of it? What have you been dating there in the Nairobi?
I have Nairobi is a East Africa is interesting. Um, a lot of times, the women from Black American women have a hard time with East African men. East African men are very much passive. And, it's not a blanket statement. This is, because I'm sure there's some men out there that's like, I'm not passive. But generally speaking, that is what a lot of American women are discussing. That they're passive. They're not necessarily going to see you in the club and come up to you, or see you at the bar and come up to you, whether you're alone or whether you're with someone else. That's not necessarily happening in Kenya. Now, they will stare at you. They'll stare at you all day long, from the time you walk this way to the time you walk that way. But it is very hard to meet men. So what happens is a lot of women are on like Bumble. I guess they may be on what's the other one? That starts no, not Twit. What's the other one that starts with a T? The dating app. The really
Tinder?
popular one.
Tinder?
Tinder, yes. They go on Tinder, things like that. So that's how they meet men, because they really are just more passive. And my understanding in speaking with Kenyan women, that's just how they're raised, to
Mm.
be more laid back, not to be loud, not to be not rah rah. So we kind of used to men as I'm from Atlanta. They come up to you, hey Miss Lady. I'm like, okay, sir. Back,
Not him is
depending
like
on how old you are, back in the day, they would yell out the car, Shawty, what your name is? So when you come from when you come from
right.
that environment to this environment,
You're like, why is
I'm
nobody talking to me? Why are
yeah,
they?
and it's like anywhere else, like the men are just flocking from all over. But in Kenya, it's a little different, but I also was told that they're used to their women approaching them.
That's what I was gonna
So,
ask. So do you go up and be like, hey, Mr.
I
Man?
mean, right, you could, I know, but
So Kenyan women go up to their men.
that's what I've been told. I've never seen it live in action. I don't know if we have any Kenyans on here, but I've been told that the women are more aggressive and the men are more passive. So,
Oh,
like what I've noticed when I don't go out as much anymore. When you first come, it's like hey, and then now I'm like no. But when I do go out, what I do notice is like the younger women, they are going after the West African men, and they're going after them with a vengeance. Like,
really?
yes, Yes, that's who they're going after. You know, the Nigerian clubs, if you go there, now clubs here, they don't really happen until about midnight. So if you go to sleep before that, I don't know where you're going. Go to the bar. In those Nigerian clubs, those women start coming in at 9:30, waiting. They are dressed,
Wow.
they are waiting. Yes.
They're on the prowl. Listen.
They're on the prowl. They're on the prowl for the West Africans and the white men. That's what I've been told.
Wow. Interesting. But then, okay, so like, what's your experience as a Black American? Have you seen, like, do Black American women there, just because this is the word that Yvonne used, hunt for men in that same way? Or is it more likely that you'll have somebody from West Africa coming up to a woman, or is it just primarily the apps?
I will say, and I can only speak for my circle. My circle doesn't hunt. Now, some of them may place themselves. So that may be kind of hunting. They're placing themselves in certain atmospheres to, be seen.
We go
I would say,
golfing.
don't do that. That is hilarious. Don't be throwing me under the bus.
Just saying. Just saying.
That could be something. They could go golfing.
You didn't see anybody while you were golfing? I know you saw somebody.
You definitely
You
see, like, because a lot of times I'm the only woman there.
I can imagine.
Because yeah, so it's primarily men, and they speak hi, but they're not really gonna just come up and approach you. They're gonna speak to you. I don't know if it's a filler. I'm not sure what it is. I just play golf. I'm just there for the golf.
Whatever you say.
Um, but I think a lot of times it's the West African men that approach, occasionally the Kenyan men, but that's pretty slim. And then a lot of the apps. I think that a lot of women do the apps as well. So, but you also have to think about the Black women that are traveling here that are single. Some of them are looking for relationships and marriage, but I think that generally Black female expats are not necessarily looking for that. I feel like they're open to it, but most of them, I don't feel like they're out here just looking for relationships. I feel like a lot of times they're just out here living their best life.
I would have to agree. I
That's
think,
just
you
my
know
opinion.
why? I think it's because the dating atmosphere in the US is so tiring that when Black women do go abroad, we're on some like eat, pray, love ish. Like, we're just like, listen,
Yeah,
I've like worked hard all my life. I did school or whatever your path is. You did the Black girl excellence thing and you've excelled, and so now you're like looking for meaning in life. Like, we're like we're all on like another
exactly.
we're on another plane.
Yeah, exactly. And, like you said, you've done your career, your education, you may have been married, divorced, had kids,
Yeah, we're
a lot
exhausted.
of, yeah, we're exhausted. We're not really trying to do that. And then you also have to remember when you leave the States, a lot of times these men are going to make less money than you.
Mm,
What range of less is, depends. But a lot of times they're going to make less. So that kind of puts you back into that front seat of being the breadwinner. And a lot of women don't want to do that, not at this stage. So, is it more so that they just want company or to date, or are they looking for something lasting? I think that really depends on the woman.
mm. But you did mention that as Black Americans, we do have access to a higher class in Africa, or in at least in Kenya. So
Mhm.
the dating pool, I'm assuming, would open up to more like people of a different socioeconomic status. I'm assuming. Confirm or deny.
So It does. However, marriage is very much a big thing in Kenya. Around 30, a man is expected to get married. Around like early 30s, late 20s for women. They're expected to get married and procreate. I can't say married and have children because it is literally getting married and procreating. And then those men and those women step out on the marriage because they're there to procreate. They're
Wow.
not necessarily in love. You're told, oh, it's a loveless marriage. First, I thought this was just men cheating on their wives, and some of it is men cheating on their wives. But I've also been told by a Kenyan that this is also women that step out. You stay together for the family unit because that is what is required of you. But they still stepping out. Also, there are some tribes that still believe in polygamy. I was asked by a man to be his third wife. I'm like, sir,
Third.
third, not even the second one, child, the third one. Uh,
Well, what kind of benefits is he offering? Sometimes it's like,
you
look,
know,
I'll listen. I'll have the
I did
conversation.
listen. I was waiting on someone. I had my tea, so I said, "Let me entertain this." I said, "So what do you do?" He was like, in Kenya, men are allowed to have as many women as they can take care of. I said, "Oh, okay." I said, "Well, I live in this certain area in Nairobi. Are you paying my rent?" He was like, "Oh, the rent's very expensive there. They normally go back to the village." I said, "Oh no, sir. I'm not going back to the village. I'm living where I am. If you taking care of me, you need to pay this rent."
Yes.
I said, so I like to get my nails done, my hair done, my nails done every 2 weeks, my hair done every 4 weeks. I do weekly massages. I also have a live-in nanny. I said I like to go out at least 3 times a week, go to brunch, go to a jazz little show, have some wine, things of that nature. I said, so you need to add that onto your tab. And he was like, well, we work as partners. I said, well, you just told me that the job you can have as many women as you can afford. He said, well, your stuff is a little more expensive, so we work as partners. I said, well, if you're my partner and I'm paying for a lot of it, why do I need you? What what
That
what are
part.
you bringing to my life?
That part.
Like,
That part. So
why would I why would I do that? So by the time I was done, I think I stressed this poor man out. I said, well, I'm moving next week and I need the money for the mover. The mover here is about $200. They come, pack everything up, move it, unpack it. I said, well, you can send me the money. You can send me the money on M-Pesa. That's how we send our shillings, Kenyan shillings. I said, so I'll expect it tonight and then we can discuss me being your third wife. When I tell you that man never contacted
period.
me,
Listen. Listen. Those were the terms. It's a contract. Those were the terms.
right? It's so funny. The waitress came over and I said, is this what men do here? And she said, what? So I told her about it. And she said, that man wasn't even in your league. I thought he was your driver. Mind you, he was a driver. So she wasn't
He
wrong.
was right.
Yep.
So this is how they act. This is how they act. Black Yaya says Kenyan men will be married with kids and won't tell you. Polygamy is legal so they can collect women like infinity stones. Not infinity stones.
Not Infinity Stones.
I'm crying.
That's the Infinity Stones for me.
No.
Yes. So you can find a man at the golf course or the racing track or wherever you're going. But 9 times out of 10, he's married.
Oh wow.
If that's what if you cool with that, then I'm cool with what you cool with. But just know that that's typically the case. And this is even in the Kenyan culture. I was talking to my house manager, and she was telling me, basically, you won't even know your husband has another wife until other people in the village. tell you that your husband has another wife. He could be seeing this woman. This is in the village. This is not even in the city. He could be seeing this woman for years. And it's not until you hear people in the village talking and find out that that's the second wife. And she's like, "What? You can't leave. You can't afford to leave, and you're an outcast because unlike some cultures in West Africa where the children belong to the man, here they will leave the wife and the children. Kenya has the highest rate of single moms in Africa. So, right,
Listen,
this is
that sound like somebody daddy in New Orleans. That if I wanted,
child.
I'm gonna tell you something my friend's mama told her. If you want a broke black man, you could go down the street. You don't have to leave the country.
This is true. This is
If
true.
you want somebody
This
who
is
got
true.
multiple wives and babies everywhere, you don't gotta leave the country to do it.
But let me say this though, because I have to speak up. Now, if you get you a West African man, and this has been my experience,
You
a
get
West African
provisions.
man will have other wives. He still takes care of you as if you're the only wife. He be cooking and he make you, if you get a good one, he cook and he clean and he give massages. So that would may be better. That he may be broke, right? But that may be better than the African American man that's broke because he playing on the PlayStation and So it depends. Which broke one do you want? I don't know. Or do you want the one with money that's married? I don't know. But if a woman is like, "Oh, I want to come and meet some men," I'd be like, no, ma'am, not here.
Pick a
This is
different country.
I'm not saying you can't meet a man. I'm not saying you won't meet a man. I'm saying that the statistics of you meeting the man you're going to marry is much lower than in some other African countries.
Wow.
Now, in South Africa, oh yeah, you can. They're all there. They're going to step to you. In West Africa, same thing. They're going to step to you. In East Africa, because I've also lived in Rwanda. In East Africa, not so much. So, but the ones that are married will step to you much quicker. But I think that's all over the world.
Because they don't have anything to lose. They don't have anything to lose. Okay.
Hmm.
Oh,
That's all over the world.
that is a mess. I see y'all comment.
Mhm.
I see y'all comments. A provider with no provisions. How dreadful. Indeed, Farida. Indeed. How dreadful. Okay, well, it doesn't sound like King is the place where you gonna meet your king. Um, but do you think that Kenya will be your forever home?
No. Mm-mm. No, no, no. So one thing that keeps me in Kenya is my son's school.
Mm,
His school is absolutely amazing for him, especially for a child with disabilities. It's hard to find a good school, and I found a really good school. His nanny is amazing. I had decided I wasn't going back to the States this year, so I started looking for doctors. His pediatrician is amazing. The orthopedist they sent me to is amazing. He has a good physical therapist. So I feel like at this point, my son is what's keeping us here. So I'm planning for like 2 years for him to do schooling. And then after that, we'll probably go on. Plus, Kenya has been in my heart since I was a little girl that this was the place I was going to come and I was going to live. So when I got here and they started scamming me and my ceiling started leaking and all of that, I'm like, God, what is going on? This got to be a joke. Like, we can't be serious. This can't be the place I've been dreaming about all of my life. So I'm like, never say never, but right now the plan is for 2 years, and that's a lot for me because the longest I've ever stayed in a country, I stayed in DR for 6 to 7 months. I stayed in Rwanda for about 7 to 8 months. Well, actually, I can't even say 7 to 8 months because I left and came to Kenya for 2 weeks and just stayed here for 2 months. So I never even like off a whim. So
Yeah.
I never finished my stint in Rwanda. So I would say, yeah, 6 months is my limit. So it's a little rough for me.
Mm. Yeah, I feel like I have that same problem. Like there's just too many places to see, I think. And there's so many if you like a place and you're like, "Oh, this could be my home. Let me do a few months." Hmm. I want to address this comment. Angela says you are bursting Kyoka's I want a Kenya husband bubble. That was not my bubble. Someone told me that my husband would be in Kenya and
Me
clearly, clearly
too.
not. And now I'm wondering, was that shade?
It's funny because I used to have this reoccurring thing that I would meet my husband in Kenya. And I'm like, huh. Then I get to Kenya and I'm like, hmm, yeah.
It feels like a joke. It feels like a joke.
It's not impossible.
Okay.
That's what I say. That I'm with her. Hmm.
That
I've
might be the
asked
way of
that
the
question.
future. That might be the way of the
I've
future.
asked that.
You have asked that question. What have been the responses? If I can
I asked the Kenyan men. They didn't want to hear that. They was like, why would you have two husbands? What would you do with two husbands? I said, well, what would you do with two wives? Well, we procreate and we make children. I said, well, I ain't having no more children. So why would you need two wives? Like, if you need children, you go to the wife to give you children. I'm like, no, I can have two husbands. I can love two people at the same time, the same way you can. What make you think because you got an extra chromosome, then that means that you're more capable than I am? I'm the nurturer. I can nurture two men. Why? Like you're not even a nurturer. Like what you saying?
Multi Brookside, you need assistance in order to get a Kenyan man aged 35 years and above who is single. Not assistance. You
Wait,
need help.
assistant.
You need assistance. Like a service? Like you have to do dating service? Multi
Yeah, we
Brookside, are
need
you
more
Kenyan?
information.
Yeah, we need more of an explanation.
Right. And do I have to give them something small to get a kid? Like,
Not give us
I just need to know. Let me take this back to the group.
not now you gonna share it. Right. If you know
Yeah,
the
we
secret.
got to share all the positive news.
Oh
I'm
my god.
just saying.
Okay,
I share the wealth.
going back, going getting on track. Farida says, I've heard the educational system in Kenya is top tier.
So I don't know if it's top tier. I can't say yes or no. However, what I do know is that I have not heard any complaints from any of the expats that have their children in the schools. And most people do international schools. I personally don't do international schools. And it's not necessarily something I recommend if you have a child with special needs or a disability. If your child doesn't have that, then maybe international schools is what's best for you. However, I look at it like this: the makeup of an international school is very similar to the makeup of a school in the U.S.
Mm,
You're not going to have as many foreigners, and you're not going to have as many locals, and it's going to be a lot of foreigners. A lot of people from the UN and embassy things of that nature. I like private schools personally, and I've even done this when my son was in Rwanda, when we were in Mexico. I did private schools because what I've come to find is that they focus more attention on the child. They may not have IEPs, but they develop a plan for that child based off of what their needs are. For example, in my son's school, he does horseback riding, he does swimming. They play football, which is soccer. They do bead work. He was in piano class, and they noticed he didn't like piano class. Like after they've observed him for a few months, and they said, "Well, let's find something he likes." So they ended up putting him in culinary classes, and these are just regular classes in the school system. Most schools are going to have this. Um, and, it's like they take time to observe what is needed and what's necessary for your child. And they typically have smaller class sizes than the international school. So I like private. I know a lot of people like international. A lot of their curriculum is British curriculum, and then they also have the Kenyan curriculum that they just changed. The other thing is English is a primary language here. The kids actually learn English before they learn Swahili. So that's the other thing. English is a primary language. You can also find schools that will teach your children other foreign languages, maybe French or German. I've talked to people. Now, educational systems, almost everybody educational system is better than ours in the US. Our educational system is trash. So once you leave,
To put it
it's
like,
not very hard. Yeah. I mean, when you take a child from a school in the US to most schools out of the US, expect them to be lower than the children that
mhm,
they were in that same grade because the educational system is not equivalent. And that's most places. That's not even just Kenya. That's most places, especially if they're using that British curriculum. Our children just are below because our system is below. We don't start teaching our children until they're like age 7 in first grade, whereas everybody else started teaching their children in fourth grade. And we're telling them, oh, don't teach them, just let them play. So, for that reason, we're just very much behind. We're not on track. So, you have to think about that. So, if your child goes to another school, and know that they're probably going to be behind and they may struggle a little bit, but also know that the teachers actually care. They don't have as much paperwork, and they're not as driven to do what the top people say. They have a lot more wiggle room to create for your child and to help your child. But that's been the case because I've done private schools. I've never done the international schools. But I have had friends whose children have been in international school, both here in Kenya and in Rwanda, and they really, really like it. They think, we don't have the same worries. Like when my child goes to school, I know that he's okay. I don't have to worry if there's a mass shooting or something crazy going on. I leave
mhm,
all of those stressors in the United States.
yeah, yeah. And if you want to know more about that, Charisma has her own YouTube channel. Some of you may already be subscribed to her channel, but I'm gonna put it in the comment section and also in the description of this video. But that's phenomenal.
Yes, and I'm gonna be honest, I'm not as active on my YouTube as I used to be. I try to pop in there.
You don't have to say that. You don't have to say that.
I know, but I say that because if you go through my YouTube channel, there's like 3 years of material there. I have videos on how to find a nanny abroad, how to find a school, how to travel, different things you need to do. I have videos in there on Mexico, Panama, Costa Rica, Rwanda, Kenya. So there's a lot of we used to homeschool and world school, so I actually like did videos on like with each program, the pros and cons on it. So all of that is on there. So if you dig through there, you'll definitely find a lot of information.
So we are winding down. If you guys have any questions for Charisma, because we didn't kept her on the line for over an hour, I do want to ask about healthcare while you're there in Kenya, because you mentioned that your son is receiving amazing treatment while he's there. So could you speak a little bit to cost and quality?
So, normally you're not going to find a lot of doctors in some of these specialties. You just have to find the right doctor. So again, I would say get into the expat community, and find out who the doctors are, because they do have some good hospitals and good doctors, but they also have some not so good hospitals and good doctors. Like some of the hospitals, Aga Khan is good, Nairobi Hospital is good. So let's see, the average cost for a doctor's appointment, without insurance, is about $16 to $20. Um, the average cost for physical therapy, is about $20. Hold on. At doctor's appointments are about $30. I did the calculations wrong. Um, so basically your copay.
Right.
Physical therapy appointments are about the same. I was admitted to the hospital because I was having GI issues. I had to do ultrasound. I had to stay overnight. Um, I had to have all it had IVs and different things. And my bill total was about $800 with the overnight stay, with the medications, with the ultrasounds, and the testing that was done, and the medications, maybe around $600. Yeah, around $600. And then I actually went back and I had to do more, like a colonoscopy and stuff like that. I think total with everything, I paid like $1,200, which the co-pays alone would have probably equaled over $1,200.
Absolutely.
The dentist, like a cleaning is what, about $30, 30 to 50, depending on the dentist you go to. These are all things you can pay out of pocket. Then I went to a hospital. You know how they talk about the head to toe, where they do like all the different things? They actually have a hospital here, that does that. It's ran by Columbia Hospital in New York. They do for like $130. They do your eye exam. They do the mammogram is extra. That's about $20 if you want a mammogram. They do a chest X-ray. They do an ultrasound of your abdomen, kidneys, all of that. They do labs. They do a pelvic exam, your Pap smear. You do a nutrition consult, a dental consult. Basically more than we would get in your physical, a EKG, and that's $130.
Wow, an EKG. That's
Yep.
phenomenal. Wow. Um, oh my gosh. I'm just thinking
Right.
about, you might pay $130 for health insurance, not even to get treatment. Like a month?
You pay
Yeah,
right. You paying
$130 a month.
$130 for the ultrasound. That's your copay.
That's your copay. The real cost is like $5,000. That's
Yep.
crazy.
Yep. And they're doing all of your labs, all of your annual labs that you would do, check your sugar, your cholesterol, lipids, all of that is included as well.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing.
Hmm.
Um, well, Charisma, I appreciate you sharing your knowledge, your transparency, child. You've offered a lot of insight into Nairobi and Kenyan culture. I want to shout out this comment from Lauren Bishop. She says, I just want to say I love both of you guys. YouTube channels. Charisma is so uplifting. And Kyoko, I'm signing up for your copywriter course, boo. I need to work from home. Oh, yeah. My copywriting course. Let me get in the description of this video. And she asked, how's Cam doing?
So y'all know Cam is a star. More people know Cam than know me. So even even on the block, they know Cam. They're like, "Hey, Cam's mom."
He
He
famous.
is doing phenomenal. He has really found his place here. The reason we settled is because he said he was ready to go to school. When we started this journey, Cam was like 8 or 9. He's 13 now. So a lot of the expat community has seen him grow up over the years. And like from baby to teenager. He got aunties across the globe. But he's doing amazing in his school. He has friends here. My mom's coming to visit, so he's looking forward to mom and grandpa coming to visit.
Mhm.
He no longer really asks about a lot of people back home. This is his new home, and he just loves it. I have a live-in sitter, so she does things with him, so he gets to be independent and be a teenager. Honey, he has plans. On Sunday, he makes his plans for Saturday. He's like, Mom, on Saturday, I'm going to such and such and such. I'm very rarely invited to anything. Um,
He a teenager. He a teenager.
yes, and, I don't know that he would be able to live this life if we were in the States. I wouldn't be able to necessarily have someone with him, that's available all the time for the most part and allow him to have, this freedom. I think I would be too afraid to let him be all up and down the streets. He goes out walking, he knows the sugar cane man, he knows the corner store man.
Right.
Uh, it's really a beautiful thing. It really is.
He has a little social life, a social calendar. We love it.
Mhm.
Okay, this
Yes.
is our last question from A4. How have you gone about banking in Rwanda and Kenya?
So banking in Kenya is not so easy because you have to get what's called a KRA pin. So it's some hoops around that. Now in Rwanda, because I have land in Rwanda and I do business there, I do have a banking account there. It's not as hard to get a banking account. It's just that opening an account literally takes all day. I know that doesn't sound logical, but everything there takes like four times the amount of time. But they're not gonna really rip you off. You're not really gonna deal with that type of thing in Rwanda. So I keep an account there, but I always tell people do not keep a lot of money in foreign accounts. Keep $100 or less because they're not FDIC insured like we are in the States, and transfer that money in there when you need to make a deal, purchase something, do something like that. Now, what we do have here, we have M-Pesa. In Rwanda, we have Momo. So think Cash App. So basically, you transfer the money into it, and then you pay what you need to pay. So you don't necessarily have to have a bank, but everybody takes those. Everybody in Kenya takes M-Pesa. Everybody in Rwanda takes Momo, and most people prefer it because their money is right there.
Hmm. Okay, perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I really
You
appreciate it.
are welcome.
Yes. And thank
Uh,
you all for watching. I'm sorry, I cut you off. I mean,
I wanted to remind people about the 5 day stress reset at the end of April. We'll be going over different ways to help our bodies decrease stress, focus on ourselves. We'll be looking at nutritional habits, spiritual habits, all day, journaling, all different types of things. So I can give you all some tips to work on your stress, especially with everything going on in the States.
ciao. And I will be putting that in the description of this video if it already isn't there. And then I'll post it in the comment section. So, you guys, thank you so much for joining me. If you haven't liked the video, like the video, share this video with somebody who is interested in Kenya. That's all I got. Stay black. Have a beautiful day. Bye, y'all. Bye, Charisma. Thank you.
Bye.